me personally, and I think all of us would have had some bad experience with healthcare in our life, right? Misdiagnosis हुआ होगा या तो गलत मेडिसिन प्रिस्क्राइब किया होगा, either happened with us or somebody near and dear to us. हुआ ही होगा. हेल्थ केयर में बहुत डेटा है और वो डेटा अभी के दिन में यूज नहीं किया जा रहा है, वो फाइल में पड़ा रहता है. Nobody actually uses it. If that data can be used, it can be actually make a positive impact on people's lives. It can make the lives of doctors also simpler. Complex medical technology where India में बन भी सकता है कि नहीं,
ये भी डाउट होता है.
ये डाउट होता है. And obviously they may not express it in so many words, but that will creep into their minds ना. वो तो मैंने बहुत फील किया है. इंडिया में बन सकता है. आज भी मैं फील करता हूँ. I think the by default change that happened in me after I became CEO was to realize that I cannot do anything. Hi, Accel, how are you?
I'm good. I want to come to Sigtuple. How did it started? Because you were working. You had a, आपने जैसे बोला कि एक वक्त तो था ही, but you also entered a place, wrong time. तो आपने ये इसमें कैसे ensure किया कि वो right place, right time भी हो जाए, और how did you find out this problem?
So, wrong place, wrong time, it was, I would say, absolutely correct. And that gave me a lot of learnings. कि जब financial meltdown हो रहा है, maybe starting a startup in a very, very niche field is not a good idea. But in 2015, when I started Sigtuple, the picture was very different.
Right.
And a lot of things were happening. Flipkart reached $1 billion valuation just, I think, a year or so before that. The Snapdeal was going all places. Swiggy had just raised a few gazillions of money and all that. So the startup ecosystem in India at that point of time was booming at that time. Okay? And artificial intelligence was also coming of age, I would say. Coming of age मतलब देखो, artificial intelligence अभी हमने स्कूल में भी पढ़ा है. हाँ, वो एक न्यूरल नेटवर्क्स था and all that. पर उससे बहुत ज़्यादा कुछ काम नहीं हो रहा था. मतलब it was just a toy. छोटा मोटा प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने के लिए यूज कर सकते हो, लेकिन कोई बड़ा प्रॉब्लम के लिए artificial intelligence wasn't there. But that changed in the early part of 2010 onwards, right? So AlexNet आया, and with the advent of GPUs and everything, artificial intelligence became a viable solution to very complex problems. And in 2015, Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, in his keynote, he was effusive about the future of AI. He talked about people using AI to solve medical problems, to solve autonomous car, and what not. And all this made possible with the advent of GPUs and the new types of neural networks, courtesy AlexNet. So that is when we also got interested. And obviously, I had some background in machine learning and AI and all that when I was part of Yao and a part of Amex also. This is the ideal field for us. But abhi now, what do we apply it on? Artificial intelligence का बहुत सारे applications हो सकता है ना. You can use it for fashion, you can use it for security, you can use it for medical, you can use it for fraud detection, whatnot. हमारा जो आइडिया था शुरू से that we should be building something जिससे कि touches people's lives positively, impacts people positively. And me personally, and I think all of us would have had some bad experience with healthcare in our life, right? Misdiagnosis हुआ होगा या तो गलत मेडिसिन प्रिस्क्राइब किया होगा, either happened with us or somebody near and dear to us. हुआ ही होगा. And what we intuitively knew, even though I was never part of the healthcare world, we intuitively knew that healthcare में बहुत डेटा है और वो डेटा अभी के दिन में यूज नहीं किया जा रहा है, वो फाइल में पड़ा रहता है. Nobody actually uses it. If that data can be used, it can be actually make a positive impact on people's lives. It can make the lives of doctors also simpler. That was the intuitive idea. But intuitive idea से तो मतलब कुछ होता नहीं है. You need concrete things. तो concrete things कहाँ से मिले? And as I said, I don't have any health background. Neither did my co-founders have any healthcare background. So luckily for us, we got connections to some very visionary doctors here in Bangalore.
Right.
Okay. So some of them were pathologists, and they actually told us that yes, there are problems to be solved, and if you can solve them, they will positively impact a lot of lives. So they only helped us actually identify the first problem, which is basically blood microscopy, and how it will help the end patient. And they also helped us get the initial set of data to get started. And that's how the journey started.
Right, right. And now, if you have to explain Sigtuple to a 10-year-old, or let's say a person who is in just second or third standard, how will you explain to him or her?
Okay, that's a good question. तो ठीक है, ब्लड टेस्ट तो कराया होगा उसने, राइट? और रोया भी होगा, करेक्ट? ब्लड टेस्ट के ना, देखो ब्लड टेस्ट में अगर सब कुछ, इफ यू आर हेल्दी, तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. अभी के दिन में जो मशीन्स है, दे विल गिव यू अ रिपोर्ट. अगर इफ ऑल द पैरामीटर्स आर विद इन रेंज, कुछ दिक्कत नहीं है, एवरीथिंग इज वेल एंड गुड. प्रॉब्लम जब तभी होती है जब कोई पैरामीटर आउट ऑफ रेंज होता है. हाँ, तो उस टाइम में व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड इज बेसिकली समबडी टू क्रिएट अ स्लाइड, बेसिकली एक कांच का टुकड़ा which is 3 inch by 1 inch, put a drop of blood on it, spread it, and put some chemicals on it, which gives colors to the cells. And then somebody taking that slide, putting it under a microscope and looking at the cells and trying to figure out what kind of cells are there, or whether there are adequate number of cells or not, or whether there are abnormal cells or not. This is what a pathologist does by looking at a microscope. ठीक है? तो उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि पैथोलॉजिस्ट, सैंपल और माइक्रोस्कोप तीनों को एक ही समय में एक ही जगह में रहना चाहिए, राइट? तो विच मेक्स बेसिकली मीन्स कि मैं अगर दूर हूं और मेरा सैंपल कलेक्शन कहीं और हुआ है, तो रिपोर्ट मिलने में मुझे काफी देर होगी, क्योंकि पैथोलॉजिस्ट के पास आएगा, देन द पैथोलॉजिस्ट विल लुक एट इट, देन द रिपोर्ट विल कम बैक टू मी. हो सके कि मैं जिस एरिया में, वहां पे कोई क्वालिफाइड पैथोलॉजिस्ट है ही नहीं, तो कौन सॉल्व करेगा? That is the problem we try to solve through Sigtuple. हाँ, तो Sigtuple में हम लोग क्या करते हैं कि we have a machine which is basically an automated microscope. Microscope क्या है ना? Microscope is something which shows a magnified view of very very small objects like cells. हाँ, तो we have a microscope which is automated. उसमें अगर sample आप रख दोगे, तो it will actually take magnified images of different areas of the sample. Or then what it will do, it will try to identify what are the different types of cells that are there, and put them into different classes. ये abnormal है, ये normal है, ये normal cells कम है, ये normal cells ज़्यादा है, ये abnormal cells ज़्यादा है, and it will create a report. और वो report pathologist के पास जाएगा. The pathologist will be able to see that report with the pictures of the cells on a web browser. ठीक है? तो मतलब pathologist को cells दिख रहा है, but without having access to the sample or the microscope. And therefore, he or she can now sign off on a report or diagnose on a report remotely. और पैथोलॉजिस्ट का वर्कलोड भी कम हो जाता है, क्योंकि अभी मैनुअली करने से अगर 5 मिनट लगता होगा, अभी डिजिटली, क्योंकि AI has already done 90% of the work, अभी that will come down to 30 seconds, 1 minute. So that is how we are helping people.
Right, that's interesting. So as you said that in your first startup it was bootstrapped, right? Now you had a vision here, okay, I want to change this, मुझे ये change करना है, and you had an end goal. But for this also, because it is this kind of industry जहाँ पे आपको research and development ज़्यादा करना रहता है, first you need to burn some cash, आपको research and development करना पड़ता है, and you have not raised funds before. So how was that experience कि जब आप पहली VC meetings के लिए जाते थे and all those things, so how will you prepare yourself, and what are some of the questions they asked you, because medical is also an industry which is not very explored by Indian startups as of now. तो वो भी एक क्वेश्चन रहेगा कि उनके पास कोई जैसे कि कोई एक डोमेन में फ्लिपकार्ट जैसे यूनिकॉर्न बन गया, तो नाउ दे हैव अ ब्लूप्रिंट कि यहाँ पे ये हो सकता है ना, अभी यहाँ पे कुछ है ही नहीं उनके लिए देखने के लिए भी. नाउ दे कैन लुक टू US स्टार्टअप्स एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स, बट बहुत ज़्यादा कोई स्टार्टअप्स है ही नहीं. तो ऐसे में what are the questions they asked you, and how your first few VC meetings went?
Fortunately, when we first raised our funds, it came mostly from angels. Okay, but we did have to go through a lot of VC meetings in the next fundraise. Okay, so उस time में I think the biggest questions that people asked us is that you are an outsider in this industry. How will you penetrate? What will be your go-to-market strategy? Technology तो फिर भी मैं समझ लिया कि बना लोगे. So people, there were questions on that. For the simple reason, as you said, इंडिया में कभी उसके पहले बहुत ज़्यादा तो बना नहीं. Complex medical technology where इंडिया में बन भी सकता है कि नहीं,
ये भी डाउट होता है लोग.
ये डाउट होता है. And obviously they may not express it in so many words, but that will creep into their minds ना. वो तो मैंने बहुत फील किया है. इंडिया में बन सकता है. आज भी मैं फील करता हूँ. अच्छा वो जो स्टार्टअप है यूएस, अच्छा दे कम फ्रॉम यूएस, दे हैव अ डिफरेंट पेडिग्री, उनके पास स्टैनफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी का डेटा है, क्या नाम है, मेयो क्लिनिक का डेटा है, आपके पास क्या है? मेयो क्लिनिक एंड स्टैनफोर्ड, बट ह्यूमन ब्लड इज द सेम बॉस, है ना? तो ये क्वेश्चन तो सबके दिमाग में रहता है, whether they express it or not. The second question I faced was, as I said, market कैसे तोड़ोगे? And India is a very, very, very cost-sensitive market. और उसमें एक और भी प्रॉब्लम है. If you try to optimize for cost right from day one, you'll end up with a bad product. It's better to build it maybe at a higher cost, then try to optimize the cost. ये सब चीज were learnings that we had, but we had to justify कि ये cost barrier कैसे तोड़ोगे. Even today that cost barrier exists. I think these were the two biggest questions that I had to face while these things.
Right. And like you had went through, you have raised 3 rounds of like Series C tak, right? So now if any aspiring entrepreneur who is watching right now, if they want to raise startup for his or her startup, like what are the parameters he or she should check in before going to VC meetings or before pitching to them, and how he can create a proper pitch for VC meetings?
I think एक तो है कि product क्या करेगा. I'm assuming that you do not have the full product in hand. We go to market भी शुरू नहीं हुआ है. जो I think what is very, very important and which will actually help turn deals is that a very clear idea on what the product does and what problem it solves.
Right.
And second is whether anybody else in the world is solving that same problem. If you say that nobody else has solved this problem, that is actually a bad thing.
Yeah.
Then why are you solving it? Maybe it's not worth solving. Okay. Then fine. So basically, it's good to have some competition somewhere in the world. If not in India, somewhere outside. And how are they solving it? That clarity should be there. The second clarity you must have in your mind is basically how you will take this product to the market, and whether it is an India-only product or it's a global product or it's a not India product. All these ideas should be absolutely clear in your mind. And these are not very easy things to get at the beginning. Especially if you're not coming from this field. से कुछ बना रहे हो. Doctors will tell you, okay, this is a great problem to solve. But doctors are not the ones who are going to write the checks. It is the hospital administrator who's going to write the check. So you need to understand what the hospital administrator also thinks about it. Whether the economics works out for it. ठीक है? हो सके कि इंडिया में वर्कआउट नहीं हो रहा है. But it might work out somewhere else. In that case, you need to see how your competitors are going to market. So a go-to-market strategy का clarity होना, I would say, is very, very, very important. जो कि मेरी नहीं. I had this. I think we made through sheer confidence and by the dazzle of the technology. But go-to-market की clarity मुझे भी नहीं थी उस time में. When we first raised the Series A and all that. We made a lot of talk, but the clarity नहीं थी. So if you have that clarity, that is something I think which will impress VCs more than just the technology.
It will give them that confidence कि नहीं बात ये कुछ कर सकता है, ये जानता है. ये कौन से मार्केट में जा रहा है, क्या प्रोडक्ट बना के किसको बेचेगा, ये थोड़ा उसको आइडिया है. He will figure out it on its way, but उसको आइडिया तो है.
Exactly.
And now the connecting question to this, how to approach VCs, because एक आउटसाइडर, बिकॉज इफ़ यू आर नॉट फ्रॉम द एंटरप्रेन्योर्स साइड, अगर आपको एक फर्स्ट हिंट था भी नहीं तो आपके कोई कनेक्शन और नेटवर्क भी नहीं है यहाँ क्योंकि कोई आपको VC तक पहुँचा देगा, देन हाउ टू रीच आउट टू VCs?
I think a lot of VC firms actually have these seed programs. That I would say is the best way to get in, because cold calling may not work. Most VCs prefer warm introduction. Right? And if you do not have anybody to introduce you, it becomes slight bit of a problem. I'm not saying that it won't work. It might work. But then there are lots of VCs who have seed programs going on. For example, Accel has it, Chiratae has it. I'm sure there will be other VC funds also have seed programs. Usme entry barrier bhi kam hai, and you get to know the people. They get to know you. I think those, and there are some incubators. Medical device ke liye bhi ek do incubators hain. Then there is a government ke bhi kuch grants hain. BIRAC ke kuch grants hote hain. There's something called a big BIG. I've forgotten the full form. मैं भी उसके पैनल में एक दो बार आ चुका हूँ. There are grants over there. Then sometimes universities also have incubator programs, which are scouting grounds for some of the VC firms and all.
Right. So now the question is, startup has raised the fund. Now अभी उनके लिए मेरा क्वेश्चन ये भी रहता है माइंड में कि अभी मैं ब्रेक इवन पे कैसे पहुंचूंगा, कि जैसे मैंने मान लीजिए $20 million का एक राउंड फंड कर दिया है. Now I want to reach the break even point also. तो वो break even कैसे पहुंचना है, उसमें कितना टाइम लगता है. These are also the frequent questions of people who want to start a business, or even in bootstrap also, कि उन्होंने जो initial पैसा लगाया भी है तो वो recover करने में कितना टाइम लगता है. So how much time it takes to reach break even points, and what will be the good strategy to reach there also.
देखिए, एक तो बात है कि मेडिकल इंडस्ट्री में कोई भी नया प्रोडक्ट takes a lot of time to bring to market. If it's a software only product, maybe slightly less. But if it is a hardware product, काफी साल लग जाता है. तो you have to take that into your estimates. And अगर B2B है, B2C पे है, उस पे डिपेंड करेगा. B2C में आपका वॉल्यूम ज्यादा रहेगा, but maybe you'll have a lower margin. And B2B में you should always target a higher margin. That is the way to break even. That is the plan to break. I mean. And medical में, I think going, you should always try for positive unit economics. Consumer tech में, you can actually grow with negative unit economics for a long time before you become profitable. But medical solutions में, I doubt whether people are going to buy that. If you go into negative unit economics right from the beginning.
What is negative and what is positive unit economics?
देखिए, positive unit economics मतलब suppose I sell something to you and you give me X rupees. But how much did I spend to get that X rupees? मेरा customer acquisition cost है. Then there is a cost of me procuring that or manufacturing it. Then there is a cost of delivery, maybe a cost of service. Suppose that is Y. If X is less than Y, then it's a negative unit economics. मतलब I am actually losing money at for every sale.
सब कुछ होके आपको 700 रुपए में पड़ रहा है and आप बेच रहे हो 500 में.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. तो अगर वो 200 रुपए का डिफरेंस है, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of companies have grown like that. Amazon का भी मतलब they were loss making for so many years before they turned around, right? But at some scale, that kind of becomes your costs become lower than your revenues at some scale. So that is in negatives. But usually B2B scenario में and all that, I would say medical industry में, I think
पॉजिटिव रखना ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. राइट. और उसके बेनिफिट्स क्या है तो फिर, लाइक व्हाई वन शुड कीप पॉजिटिव यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स?
Again देखिए, I would say कि this is again a question of having a precedent. Amazon has proved that it is possible to run with negative unit economics for 10 years and then make a humongous thing. But there are no such instances in the medical industry. कि loss में तो नहीं बेचता है. I mean, there are other instances of people selling in loss. For example, HP जब आपको printer बेचता है, I don't think they make too much money. But they make money on the cartridges. Gillette जब razor बेचता है, they don't make money on the razor, but they make money on the blades and cartridges. ऐसे भी होता है. So there might be some models available like that on for medical also. Then it is fine.
You can find alternate ways to earn different.
There might be the unit economics might be negative in certain part of the product, but very very positive in the remainder of the product. Blade Mark 3 का एक blade 400 रुपए का आता है, right? How much do you think it costs to manufacture that? It's very less. But the razor comes at a reasonable cost, and it costs, I think they sell it probably at a loss.
Right. So like Binny Bansal is one of your founder, and I think I have read that he has joined the board also.
No, he has not joined the board, but he has been very involved in the board.
Right. So because you known him for a very long period of time, he has built Flipkart also. So like, if you have to steal one skill from Binny Bansal, what would that be for you?
I think what I have observed in Binny is the focus. जो काम की चीज है उस पे फोकस करो. Don't get into distractions. And whenever you do something, see what are you getting it in return. वो कोई मतलब is it actually a useful exercise or not? Because
But to return ratio देख लो.
हाँ, ये lot of us actually confuse activity with progress. If we don't ask ourselves कि activity तो मैंने कर लिया लेकिन उससे फायदा क्या हुआ, but what progress did I make? I think this is two things which I've
Can you elaborate on this activity progress, because lot of people struggle with this, और वो activity को productivity समझ लेते हैं यार, बल्कि progress को main productivity तो वो है. So can you just elaborate more on this activity progress वाला in a simpler manner? कि कैसे लोग जैसे कि डिस्ट्रैक्शन की आपने बात की ली कि लाइक नॉन यूजफुल टास्क को वो लोग फोकस कर रहे थे वो सब, तो उसके ऊपर आप कैसे समझा सकते हो उसको?
Activity versus progress, na? This is a good question actually. There are things, for example, we tend to think are important. In the context of Sigtuple, for example, we were doing our regulatory clearances and all that. There were certain requirements which came in, we thought we must fulfill them. And we did a lot of activity to fulfill those. But बाद में when we thought a little deeper, we realized कि वो सारे requirements को चाहिए ही नहीं. It is not even applicable to our particular solution. Why did we waste our time fulfilling those requirements? That I think is an active, because we started the progress, we started the work without thinking deeply. ये चाहिए भी कि नहीं. उस पर clarity, मतलब basically वो clarity, everything is ultimately linked to clarity of thought. कभी कभी वो थोड़ा धुंधला हो जाता है, तो that is when you start doing all these things.
Right. तो मैक्सिमम टाइम ट्राई करो कि you have a clarity in thought. कोई बार तो होगा ही.
End objective का whenever you do something, have the end objective in clear vision. ये मैं अचीव करना चाहता हूँ. It might be an experiment. मुझे पता नहीं कि क्या निकलेगा उससे. But वो experiment का end objective, I should be able to either prove or disprove certain hypothesis.
Right. That's a good exercise for. So now coming to the interesting part of your, organization Sigtuple, you have 19 patents, and 5 of them are applicable in USA also.
6 of them.
Great. So I just want to ask, because not in India, like I don't know about like tier 1 cities, because I come from tier 2 cities and all. So we have a very less knowledge about patent, trademarking, copyright, and all those things. And why is it important? So can you tell me, if one have to, like, if I have created one product and I want to make a patent for it, how can I make it, and what's the process for it?
Oh, that's a very good question. And patenting is something which is not part of our science curriculum. Right? मैंने भी कॉलेज में पेटेंट के बारे में नहीं पढ़ा है. Obviously, I've read about people patenting this, people patenting that and all that, but it was never part of the curriculum. इसलिए सब दिमाग में रहता नहीं है. And we always think of patents as कि एक बहुत बड़ा चीज कर लिया कोई, उसका पेटेंट हो गया. ऐसा नहीं है. If you have done something which is even incrementally different from something which exists, and it solves a real problem, there is an industrial applicability for it, it can be patented. So that is an idea which I think needs to be drilled in everybody's mind. And some companies actually have a policy behind that. When I was in my first company, National Semiconductor, they had a very good patent policy. Uska rewards bhi tha, and they used to talk about it and all that. And I have filed around 7 or 8 US patents while I was working in National Semiconductor. And that is possible because of the culture of the company. And obviously, I did some good work. That's why I filed the patent. But had I done the same work in maybe a different company, I probably may not have filed those patents. Culture था company का. तो ये culture build करना बहुत जरूरी है. And this culture cannot be top down. It has to be bottoms up also. जो काम कर रहा है, he or she should feel that okay, अच्छा ये I like this solution. I like what I have built. अच्छा, if I like it, is it unique? Okay, let's find out whether it's unique. देखते हैं थोड़ा ढूंढ के क्या मिलता है कि नहीं. अच्छा यूनिक है, थोड़ा सा यूनिक है, मे बी आई एम स्लाइटली डिफरेंट इन दिस रेस्पेक्ट फ्रॉम समबडी एल्स. अच्छा देन दैट इज व्हेन यू स्टार्ट थिंकिंग अबाउट पेटेंटिंग. और पेटेंट करने का प्रोसेस इज आई वुड से fairly simple, but you cannot do it yourself. You need a patent attorney to do it because it requires a lot of legalese and all that which a normal person cannot write down. Okay, so the best way to handle is this: basically describe your invention in clear terms, like writing a thesis or writing a research paper. Okay, that is something which is taught in colleges. Thesis लिखना तो सबके engineering में लिखा ही होगा ना. So write it down like that, and then find a good patent attorney and leave the rest to them. They'll file it.
Right. And on and around एक पेटेंट करवाने का कितना कॉस्ट आता है?
Actually that is not very small. I think लाख 1.5 लाख तो I can't give you the exact cost, मुझे अभी याद नहीं है.
On average कितना आता है?
लाख 1.5 लाख तो हो ही जाएगा.
लाख 1.5 लाख तो हो ही जाएगा ना. Right. And you know, why is it important?
Now if I have invented something which is unique, I should benefit from it. I should not at least give a free pass to somebody else to copy my invention and benefit from it. Patents gives you that right. That is point number 1. Is that it gives you a right to enjoy your own the benefits of your own invention monetarily. Okay. And if somebody tries to infringe him, it gives you a legal weapon to stop that. और दूसरा ये है कि there are lots of patent trolls in companies in the world. उनके पास बहुत सारे patent portfolio है which they have either done it themselves, but they have bought from others, licensed from others, and they are on the lookout for things which they think might be infringing on their patents. आपका अगर खुद का patent protection है, then nobody can sue you. But patent also acts as a defensive mechanism, not in that respect.
Right. Apart from them, any other like in like business context?
Yes, it definitely adds to the value of your company. When there is a merger acquisition happening and all that, credibility आ जाता है. When there is a merger or acquisition happening in your company, patents are valued separately. For example, I'll just give you one this thing. Google bought Motorola, right? Then it sold it to Lenovo. But Motorola के सारे patents, and Motorola is one of the pioneers in mobile, right? के patents अभी भी Google के पास है. Patent उन्होंने छोड़ा नहीं. As far as I know, I might be wrong, but this is what I read at that time.
Right. When we talk about this, medical products that you are building and anyone who is building right now, so वहाँ पे क्या हो जाता है कि entry barrier भी बहुत ज़्यादा है because government आपको ऐसे ही तो कुछ ऐसे ही आपका प्रोडक्ट अप्रूव नहीं कर देगी. बहुत सारा सर्टिफिकेशन भी उसमें जाता है, जैसे आपने बोला कि ये सारे सर्टिफिकेशन करने पड़ते हैं बिकॉज इफ़ यू वांट टू इफेक्ट मास कि जो नॉर्मल पब्लिक भी यूज़ कर सकते हैं मेरे प्रोडक्ट, वो सब. तो मेडिकल में क्या आ जाता है कि हाई ट्रस्ट लाने के लिए आपको यू हैव टू गो थ्रू सम रेगुलेशंस, आपको सर्टिफिकेशंस और वो सब. सो व्हाट आर दोज, लाइक हाउ डिड यू हैंडल दैट थिंग कि वो कैसे, तो वो एक ईजी प्रोसेस नहीं है, तो वो प्रोसेस क्या होता है?
तो इस चीज का देयर आर 2 एस्पेक्ट्स टू इट. वन इज प्रूविंग दैट योर प्रोडक्ट डज व्हाट इट इज इंटेंडेड टू डू with sufficient accuracy. Okay. And the other thing is that it is safe to use your product. Okay. तो ये 2 prove करने का अलग तरीका होता है. The first one is basically you do clinical validations. Clinical validation meaning basically you collect data and try to see how. Okay, I'm talking from medical devices point of view. Drugs के लिए थोड़ा अलग होगा, पर medical devices के लिए what you do is there is maybe a certain parameter that you're calculating. Let's say simple example, blood sugar. So you are giving a certain reading. How accurate is that? So there is something called a ground truth. The ground truth could be coming from a machine which is already approved. That becomes your ground truth. And you cannot do it for only 1 or 2 subjects, right? You have to do it over hundreds and hundreds of subjects to prove that your readings are always consistent with the ground truth. That is a clinical validation. ठीक है, and उसमें भी बहुत मतलब there are lots of nuances to it, whether it's a blinded study, whether it's a prospective study, retrospective study and all that.
But ये basic ही होता है, फिर आपको अपने field के हिसाब से आपको
exactly. So that is basically proving the efficacy and accuracy of your product. The other is proving the safety. Safety के लिए For drugs, you have to do first animal testing. Then there's a phase 1 testing, which is given to humans to prove the safety. Then only you go into accuracy and all, efficacy and all that. Medical device ke liye, if it is something which is coming in direct contact with the patient, you have to do human studies. Plus, there are other studies to be done. For example, whether it is emitting too much of electromagnetic radiation or not. How will it behave if it just falls? Will it break and splinters come out and hurt the subject? All these tests. So there are a lot of prescribed set of tests which need to be done to prove the safety of a device, safety of use of a device.
Right. Now coming out of your business and now talking about you as a founder, like to update yourself also, we need a lot of in which way, like we also improve ourselves. If in order to increase our company revenues, in order to increase our company also. So like how do you sharp your mind in this process? How do you sharp your mind?
I think the best way to sharpen your own mind is to look back at things you have done and look at them critically. Just because I have done it does not mean that it is right. I might have done the very wrong thing, or I may not have done the right thing at the right time. So one good example would be, there are lots of things that you have to do which are hard. The decision is hard, it will affect somebody, or there is a mess something has created and you need to clean it up and all that. And the way, at least many of us are brought up is ki, let's sugarcoat things, let's not get into direct conflicts, let's not say something which might be a little hurtful, but ultimately beneficial, but a little hurtful to somebody. And obviously we have those inhibitions, ki mat shayad nahi bolna chahiye and all that. Hai na? The way you have to improve is basically come out those inhibitions. Try to do the right thing at the right time, even if the thing that you have to do is hard. In fact, there's a book by Ben Horowitz called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Yeah. So that kind of reflects well with me.
Evaluation needs eliminating. When you evolve, you also need to eliminate. Of course, you are learning, and learning is a never-ending process. But you need to unlearn a lot of things also. So what are those things that you unlearn in your entrepreneurial journey?
I think the first thing you have to unlearn is basically being always the nice guy. You should be a nice guy. But if the situation demands you to be the tough guy or the badass, you have to be the tough guy and the badass. So trying to be the nice guy always, or trying to sugarcoat things always, is something you have to unlearn as fast as possible.
As an entrepreneur. Right. Apart from this thing, any unlearning that you did?
The other unlearning thing that most of us, especially who think from a product background, not from a business background, is that we feel that if the product is really good, it will sell itself. It doesn't happen.
Right.
You have to unlearn that thought.
So, you had your co-founders, and they also, I read that they left the company. I don't want to go into details and the stories, but what were those times for you? Like when they left, because now two of the main persons of the company are leaving the company. So it also affects the minds of employees of the company also. Right. So how did you handle that particular situation and put Sigtuple back in where it belongs?
I think the only thing that I had going in my favor is the belief that we are doing something good which will make a difference in the world. That is what I would say was my driving force, which enabled me to kind of take all these setbacks in my stride and still move forward and maintain the optimism. And when does an employee leave a company? When they feel the company is not treating them well, or when they feel that the company is not going anywhere. I have left 2 companies because I thought that they were not going anywhere. Right? Not because I had a problem with my immediate manager. No, nothing like that. But I felt that the company was going in the wrong direction. So it was important for me to communicate that right direction repeatedly over and over and over again to all the employees. And luckily, I think I had some amount of optimism in my manners, in the way I spoke and all that, which connected with the employees and I would say we didn't have too much of churn. There is obviously some amount of churn always happening. We have maybe 1 or 2 employees leaving every month, but we also fill them up. That happens. But many of them have spent 2.5, 3 years in the company. But so that is what I believe helped me in keeping the flock together, and then also guiding them in the right direction.
Right. Interesting. So now coming to the leadership aspect. Now, to run any organization, leader is the central part of any organization, and power also goes into like from top to bottom, and it should remain the same. And they should also feel that they are also important part of this, organization. How do you do this? Because now you have a team of 75, like more than 50 people. So how do you do that? Your message is way loud and clear for all the people, and power is also separated in a right way. No?
So I think the best way to achieve that is to allow independent decision making. That cannot happen randomly. You have to set a direction. So this is the goals of the company. But to achieve those goals, there are multiple steps, and you cannot. I mean, you might be a genius. But even a genius will find it difficult to get into the nitty-gritties of each step which leads to that goal. If people have to come to you for a decision for each of those steps in between, then the company will not go anywhere. And they will feel micromanaged, which will lower their morale, and they'll leave. So the key to success in this thing is basically set the direction, but delegate decision making. People, and trust me, people will come to you for important decisions. Right. And you should, I would say, encourage debate. Best decisions get made when 2 intelligent people sitting together debate it out, maybe throwing chairs at each other, and there's a third person who's actually observing. And I'm often the third person, which actually helps me take those decisions by listening to 2 intelligent people fighting it out. Right. So independent decision making and delegation, and within the framework of a clear set of goals. That is the way to go.
Right. So these are like I am also recalling, my learnings and all those things. So when you become leader, when you are the top man of your organization, you get a lot of yes men around you. How do you manage that you don't get a lot of yes men around you? Because people will start calling, yes sir, okay, I will do this.
I have a very simple rule for that. If somebody has not asked me a couple of tough questions, or in a couple of meetings, in 2 meetings in succession, I'll probably start looking at that guy in a different light. Fortunately, I do not have that kind of people in my organization.
They always question.
Yes, and I encourage that. Question me. I am not all-knowing or all-seeing. I am not neither omniscient nor omnipotent. Question me.
Yeah, so a lot of young founders deal with this kind of situation. Effective communication team में नहीं हो रहा है, from top to bottom and bottom to top also. So how one can manage कि ये effective communication एक flow set रहे अपने organization के अंदर?
So I think best way to do this, especially in a small organization, is to have regular town halls. People hear directly from the CEO or the founder.
Regular town halls, मतलब सभी लोग वहाँ पे मिल रहे हैं.
Exactly. And people hear directly from the founder or the CEO about the direction of the company. And if there is somebody in the middle who has explained otherwise to the employee, then the employee can go and ask, आपने तो ये बोला था, लेकिन CEO तो बोल रहे हैं मुझे ये करना है. Then people who also cannot veer too much, because the message is coming loud and clear from the top. People cannot be too confused about their own goals. And therefore, it also means that if your message is too complex, there are too many sub-messages in that, which will not be digested.
तो एक leader को अपना message भी एक effective way में डालना
चाहिए. Which basically means that you are doing too many things. No. Do a few things and clearly communicate about them. And you should also encourage feedback coming from bottom to top. Have skip levels. Regularly seek feedback from your direct reports. And whenever possible, do employee surveys. They are not very effective because people are not always open to writing bad things. But one-on-one conversation, people might open up. You have to keep your ears to the ground.
Right.
Both seek feedback directly or indirectly, having skip levels and all that.
So, what is effective leadership according to you?
I think communication about what needs to be done and decision making.
When we do one thing, like let's say, as I told you, that exercise, you automatically start, by default, you start eating healthy food, right? So, what is that by default change happened in you after you became CEO? And you put in a leadership role when you are managing all the people. What is that by default change happened in you?
I think the by default change that happened in me after I became CEO was to realize that I cannot do everything. And as soon as that thought came into my mind, I mean, that learning kind of synced in, I realized that I need people and I need to delegate a lot of things, which I did. And which also meant that I do not need to spend every weekend in the office and take time away from my family. So that is the exercise part, is that realization, and the healthy part of the healthy food part is basically spending actually personal time with family. Right. People say the opposite, कि मैं CEO बनने के बाद मुझे कुछ time ही नहीं है. I actually took it the other way. That even if I am the CEO, I cannot do everything. I should not even try to do everything. If I cannot do a function properly myself, I should hire somebody to do it.
So, like in business, always optimize your strengths.
Yes.
And outsource your weaknesses.
Exactly.
So, उसमें टाइम आपका बच जाएगा, आप important decisions ले पाओगे, आप कंपनी के important issues पे काम कर पाओगे, एंड जो अदर पार्ट्स है आप उसके लिए बेस्ट हायर करो, आपको एक्सेल शीट देखने की ज़्यादा की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So I want to ask you, because you are in as an entrepreneur, you have now reached like 6-7 years.
6.5 years.
Yes, and you have been to panel of some incubators also, as you said, and you I suppose you have met a lot of founders also. Lot of founders do this mistake. उनको पता होता है कि मैं बहुत कुछ काम करूँगा तो कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. Still they do this mistake. Why it happens? कि why they go into nitty-gritty or all those things. सब कुछ उनको करना होता है.
मैं खुद वो मिस्टेक किया हूँ, तो और क्या बोलना है. नहीं, I think what drives you is basically, I think, your love for the product. Yeah, whatever you're building. If you're a business guy, your love for the business. If you're a product guy, your love for the product. This is my baby. If I don't do it, somebody will do something which will mess it up.
Right.
But then the baby has grown actually. Baby वो छोटा बच्चा और नहीं है. That fellow is not looking for your father's support all the time, right? He can walk by himself, that baby. Right?
वो लोग समझते नहीं.
वो समझते नहीं है लोग. That is what happens. I mean, other people might have other reasons, but this is probably something which applies to me.
Right. Like, according to you, what are the 3 skills every founder and CEO should develop?
I think every founder and CEO should be a good salesman.
Why?
This applies to especially people who are not coming from a business background, people who are engineers. Most of engineers are shy people. They're not good salespeople. But you have to be a good salesperson. I think that is one.
Why?
Because ultimately, whatever you're selling, you are the face of the company. If you cannot sell your own product to a potential, you may not be doing the sales work on the ground everywhere. But if you cannot go walk into a client meeting or to a customer and sell your product, they bring that conviction out, nobody else is going to do it.
Right. And other 2?
Delegation.
एक हो गया delegation, effective
delegation. And third is basically effective. I would say, actually, I will make it 4 reasons, not 3. One is effective decision making. I mean, basically having a clear goal in mind and making decisions to reach that goal. And so the clarity of thought. The 4th thing is effective communication. Whatever you are thinking. Right. I mean, nobody can read your mind, right? That needs to be disseminated to everybody in the company. Effective communication.
Right. What is the one advice you want to give to a budding entrepreneur who wants to start his or her own business? And what's the one advice they should completely ignore?
One advice, and this is again me coming from me, who's a tech guy, who's a product guy, deep tech, is that if you consider India, 1.3 billion population, how many deep tech startups do we have? And consider even small countries like Israel, US छोड़ दो, Israel or some countries in Europe who are way, way, way smaller than us. They might be having more deep tech startups than India. So this is a message I always give to all budding entrepreneurs that let's change that. We have enough talent to do it. We should do it.
Why it's not happening?
I think it's the lack of the ecosystem. In my opinion, it's the lack of the ecosystem क्योंकि इंडिया में बहुत सारा deep tech successes अभी तक नहीं हुआ है. एक दो success आ जाएगा, thing will change. Or the other thing is basically I think if it's there's hardware involved, वो manufacturing ecosystem भी इंडिया में नहीं है. जो कि चाइना में है या जापान या ताइवान में है, that is not there in India.
अभी वो रोल मॉडल को देखने के लिए है नहीं. जैसे कि फ्लिपकार्ट आया, फ्लिपकार्ट ने बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप फाउंडर्स का अंदर के
exactly
करना है.
Sachin Bansal and Binny Bansal are the Aradhya Devta for a lot of including us when we started.
We did a podcast with Coco FM founders and they also said the same thing. कि फ्लिपकार्ट was on the rise. हमने उनकी स्टोरी देखी कि ये कैसे दो लोग ऐसा कर रहे हैं, बना रहे हैं. It gave a boost to us also. तो एक फ्लिपकार्ट आया और फ्लिपकार्ट एक बेंचमार्क करके कि तुम यूनिकॉर्न बन सकते हो, तुम इतने पैसे इतने पैसे की बड़ी कंपनी खड़ी कर सकते हो. You don't want to be a Tata और अंबानी कि जो भी बड़ा बिजनेस करेगा. आप भी कर सकते हो. So I think वो रोल मॉडल वाला
अभी डीप टेक में उतना है नहीं. We don't have a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs over here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that might help कि वो एक इंस्पिरेशन जगा देता है आपके अंदर कि.
But एक तो अगर आने लगेगा, I'm sure it will come. That thing will change.
And what do you think? In how many years it will come?
अगले 5 साल में ही होना चाहिए मेरे ख्याल से.
अगले 5 साल में होना चाहिए.
So everyone who has been watching this, my sincere request to all of you is to go and like and subscribe this channel, Spotlight India. I terribly enjoyed talking to Guyssss today, and I'm sure you will do. If you subscribe, you'll get to see more and more podcasts from him.
So if you get some value from today's episode, guys, then please do drop a comment कि आपकी 3 learnings क्या रही है इस episode में से. Then please share करो इस वीडियो को अपने फ्रेंड्स के साथ जो अपना खुद का एक स्टार्टअप बिल्ड करना चाहते हैं, and like this episode. And as Tatha said, subscribe to our channel और बहुत लोगों तक पहुंचाओ. Thank you so much.